We begin at the Mishnah on the bottom of Samach Vav Amud Beis. So we continue here with what they would do with the Sar La'azazel, taking it out to the cliff to be thrown off the cliff. Talk to Mishnah, Miyikire Yerushalayim. Prominent people from Yerushalayim, Hayim Malavanoisai, would accompany the individual that would take the Sar to the Azazel. At Sukkah Rishayna, until the first hut that was outside Yerushalayim. Now the Mishnah says that on the way going to the Sarla, to the Azazel, so there were huts along the way. We'll see soon exactly the story about this. So how many were there? Eser Sukkos Yerushalayim Va'ad Tzaik. There were 10 huts that were set up along the way from Yerushalayim until the cliff. What was the distance from going out of the Azara from Yerushalayim until the Mount Al-Azazel? Tishim Ris, 90 ris. How far is 90 ris? And if you count it in mil, Shiva umechze l'chol mil. 7.5 ris for every mil, which means that it was really 12 mil. 12 times 7.5 is 90 ris. So it's basically 12 mil from Yerushalayim until the mountain where the Azazel. And there was how many sukkahs in between? 10 sukkahs in between. And we'll see soon in the Gemara the Cheshbon. I'll explain the Cheshbon of why there were 10 sukkahs for that space of 12 mil. Al kol sukkah v'sukkah, by every hut there was someone there in every hut. And oimrim loi, so when the person that was taking the sar to the Azazel, they would tell him, Harei mazon v'harei mayim, here you have water, you have the food, if you have to eat, even though it's on Yom Kippur, if you have to eat, so you have what to eat over here. As the Gemara will say, none of the people that ever took the Sar La'azazel actually used that food on their way. It's Yom Kippur, you're supposed to fast. But they had it there available if you would need. So then what happened? So this person taking the Sar La'azazel would have someone accompany him from one hut to the next hut. Chutz ma'achrein shebehen, besides the last hut, that he doesn't accompany him all the way to the cliff. Because if you make the cheshbon, if there's 10 huts in 12 mil, so the shear of Tchum Shabbos is 1 mil, 2,000 tamas. So each person accompanying him could go from one to the next, right? So one person accompanied him from Yerushalayim to the first sukkah, from one sukkah to the next, and then when he came to, so that makes up for 10 mil. From Yerushalayim until the last sukkah is 10 mil. And then from the last sukkah until the tzoik, till the cliff itself, there was another 2 mil there, because it was 12 mil, right? So the last person that accompanied him went with him 1 mil, and then let him go himself another mil, and he only was able to watch from a distance, and he went the last mil alone. As it says here, he would watch from a distance, he would stand from a distance, and he would see what he was doing there. Now, what would he do when he would get to the top of the cliff? He would take the thread, a red thread, kosher or kosher besela. He would tie it on a rock on top of the cliff. Kosher bein shnei karnav. He would tie the other half between the horns of the goat. Then he pushes it backwards off the cliff. Then it rolls down. It didn't reach half of the mountain, of the cliff. It turned into pieces and limbs. Then, when he's done, he came back and he went into the very last hut closest to the mountain, and he waits there until at night. So now it says in the pasuk, Rashi brings it here, the one that takes the Sar La'azazel, his clothing become tameh. But at what point? At what point do his clothing become tameh? So there's machlekes here. Tanakama says, the moment he leaves the wall of Yerushalayim, his garments are tameh. Rab Shimon says, from the time that he comes to push it off the cliff, that's when his clothing become tameh. So we learned in the Braisa a few opinions about the number of huts and the distance. So the first opinion is like what it says in the Mishnah. Eser sukkos, there were 10 huts. Shnei masam milin, and 12 mil was the distance. Hoy, Divrei Rab Meir, that's the opinion of Rab Meir, exactly like it said in our Mishnah. Rabbi Yehuda says, Teisha sukkis, there were only 9 sukkis. Vasara million, and there was only 10 million. So then you have 9 sukkahs in that space of 10 million. It comes out that the last sukkah actually is only 1 mil from the tzaik, and the last person accompanies you all the way till the cliff itself. Rabbi Yosi says, Chomish sukkahs, vasara million. There were 5 sukkahs, and there was all 10 million, but there was 5 sukkahs there. V'kulan al yedei eirov. And the way that they would accompany him from one sukkah to the next was with an eirov. So even though you could only go 1 mil, that's the Tchum Shabbos, so you can't go more than that. So how is 5 sukkahs for 10 million enough? But if you make an eirov, so then you put the eirov in the middle, and you're able to go 2 mil. So therefore, for the 10 mil, you need only 5 sukkahs. So you use also an eirov. Now, this is the Gemara, the Braisa says, Amar Rabbi Yosi, Sachli Elazar b'ni. My son Elazar said to me, and Rashi here says that he said it to him, B'loshen Schoik al Dvarai. He was sort of mocking this opinion. He was like laughing of it. He was saying, if you're relying on making an Eid of Tchumen, so then, Imal Yidei Eidov, Yochel Ni Lasais, I can tell you that we can make afil shtei sukkais v'asara million. It would be enough to have just 2 sukkahs in 10 million in order for to have the people accompany the person taking the Sar Lazazel. So Rashi makes a cheshbon. It's very simple. How are you going to have 2 sukkahs for 10 million? So if you're going to have in each sukkah, in each one of these huts, more than 1 person, you're going to have 2 people at least in each one of these huts. So then what are you going to do? You're going to have the people coming from Yerushalayim accompanying him 2 mil. How? By making a native tchumen. So they can go out of Yerushalayim, not just 1 mil, 2,000 amas. You place the Eid of Tchumen right there at the end of the Tchum, and then you can go another 2,000 mil. So they have 2 million for the people that are coming from Yerushalayim. Then the people that are there in the first sukkah also make an Eidov, in order for them to be able to come and greet him over there at that point, so they can come forward to greet him. That's 1 person in the sukkah. And then the other person in the sukkah makes an Eid of Tchumen in the other direction. That he should be able to go 2 mil to go further, the other direction. The same thing with the next sukkah. There are 2 people in the next sukkah, so they make an Eid of Tchumen that they can come to greet him where he is, so they can walk 2 million to come and greet him. And then another person in that sukkah makes an Eid of Tchumen to be able to go another 2 million towards the mountain. Okay, so therefore, just having 2 sukkahs will be good enough to be able to accompany him along the entire way. Now the Gemara says, according to who does it go this, that it says in the Braisa, that besides the last person that accompanies the person, he didn't reach with him all the way till the cliff itself. The last mil, he went alone, which is like what it said in the Mishnah. We stood from a distance and saw what he was doing on the cliff. This is Rab Meir's opinion, that there was 12 mil, and therefore, for the last mil, he couldn't follow him. According to Rab Yosi, according to Rab Yehuda, there was only 10 mil, and there was 9 sukkahs or 5 sukkahs with an Eidov, so he was able to go with him all the way to the cliff itself. It says right in the Mishnah, I'll call sukkah v'sukkah oimrim lo yareim moznarei mayim. Every sukkah that he would come to, so the person that was there told him, here, you have food, you have water if you need. Tana, and a Braisa we learned, me oilam lehutzrach adam lekach. A person never needed to have this, never actually ate on Yom Kippur. You can't compare someone that has bread in his basket and knows that it's available for him to a person that does not have the bread in his basket. So the very fact that he had it available for him calmed him down. Now what would he do? He would divide the red thread and put half of it on a rack and half of it on the horns of the animal. So the Gemara asks why? Why doesn't he tie all of it on the rack? And over there, the point is, this red thread turned white because it forgave the Avedis of the Yidden. And so why does it all have to be tied? Why does it have to divide? Put it all on the rack. And says the Gemara, even the mitzvah besoir. The mitzvah is to be done with the goat, that it should be pushed off the cliff. Dilma kademu malbin. If what happens is maybe this red thread will turn white even before he actually pushes it off the cliff, and the person will see this. And he'll be already calmed down. In other words, he'll be happy with the kapara that was already accomplished. and therefore he won't actually complete the mitzvah. He won't want to push it off the cliff. So therefore, we say that you have to put it on the horns of the animal, and it's going to turn white on the horns of the animal. So the Gemara asks the question in the reverse: if so, v'niktere kule ben karnav, why don't you tie the entire thread on the horns of the animal and it'll turn white only after you push it off the cliff? Because zimnin the gomish le'lereishe, sometimes its head is going to be bent to such a direction, v'lav adaite, you won't be able to see if it turned white or not. So therefore, you put it on the rack to be able to see if it turned white. Tana Rabbanan and Abraisa, we learned about this. But Ishayna, Hayukaishan, Lashon Shol Zahiris, in the beginning, where would they tie this thread? This red thread? Al Pesach Ulam, by the opening of the Ulam, Yibachutz, on the outside, for everybody to see. Then Hilbin, when it became white, Hayusmeichen, everybody was happy that the Eibusher forgave them. Loi Hilbin, but then, and sometimes it did not turn white, Hayuatsevin, they were sad, Umizbaishin, and they were embarrassed. So they didn't want that the Yom Tov of Yom Kippur should be disturbed by this. So Yiskinu, they instituted Shiyakaishna Pesach Ulam Mibifnim. They tied this thread by the ulam, but the opening, but not on the inside, but on the outside, on the inside. So it shouldn't be exposed for everyone to see. But they would still peek inside to see. Everyone wanted to know whether the kapara was accomplished. And v'royin, and they would see that hilbin, if it was white, hayu smeichen, they were happy. Lo hilbin, if it didn't turn white, hayu atzevin, they were sad. So eventually, hiskinu, they were masakin, that they're not going to hang it over there by the ulam, but rather she yekoshin is a chetze besela, a chetze ben karnav, one on the rack and one on the horns of the animal. So on Yom Kippur itself, all the Yidden that were there by the Beis Hamikdash did not know what happened. So it didn't disturb their Yom Kippur if it did not turn white. Amar Rab Nachum bar Papa, Mishum Rab Elazar Kapar, he said a similar thing. But he said that Barishayna, the first stage was they would tie this thread al Pesach ulam b'bifnim. They never tied it on the outside; it was tied by the ulam on the inside. V'kivin shehigia sar lemidbar. Soon as the goat arrived to the midbar, even before it was thrown off the cliff, hayim malbin, it became white. V'yadu shenasis mitzvase. They knew that the mitzvah is done. Shenemar, as the pasuk says, im yiyu chateichem kashanim kasheleg yalbinu. That your Averis that are red will become white like snow. As we know, red represents Gvuris, and white represents Chesed, and that's the Eibusher's kindness, that the Eibusher's Mechaper on Yidden. So the Mishnah says that they would turn, that the animal was cut into pieces into Evarim from this sharp rocks in the cliff. So the question was asked, those limbs of the animal, are you allowed to have benefit from them? What do you do with them? So Rav Shmuel argued about this. Chadama, one of them said, mutarin, yes, it's allowed to have a no from them. Chadama, another opinion is asurin, that it's forbidden. Mandama mutarin, the one that says that it's allowed, because the pasuk says, ba midbar, that you send out the Sar Azazel into the midbar. And Rashi says it's an extra pasuk. It already said before that it's sent to the midbar. It says an extra time, v'shilach es asar ba midbar. Why does it say it again? So it's coming to say that just like, as Rashi says, just like the midbar is a place of hefker, that it's open to anyone to use, so too these evarim are available for anyone to have a no from them. The one that says that it was forbidden, the chsiv gzeira. The pasuk refers to this place as an erez gzeira. The word gzeira usually means something which is stringent and forbidden, so therefore it means over here that it's forbidden to have any anah of these limbs. So the Gemara is going to explain what each mandama does with the extra word that the other one would darshan. Mandama surin. So the one that says that it's forbidden, hai midbar mayavidle. What does he do with this extra word midbar? He uses it for what it says in the Braise. There's a few times. The pasuk actually says 3 times the term midbar. Hamidbara, hamidbara, bamidbar. Why does it say 3 times? L'rabbis, it's coming to include Naiv, V'givain, and Shiloh in Beis Elamim. That not only when the Yidden were in the Beis HaMikdash, when the Yidden had the Mishkan that was still in Naiv or Givain, or in Shiloh, and then Beis Elamim, that in all these places, they have the mitzvah of sending the Sar to the Azazel. V'idach, now according to the other opinion, Hai Gzeira Mayavitle. What do we learn out from this extra word, Gzeira? Look at the Tanya, we learn from what it says in the Braise. Gzeira, what does the word Gzeira mean? And Gzeira ela chatucha. Gzeira means that it should be a place, like Rashi says, the Sar Azazel. Azazel was not a mountain where it went down like in a slope. The animal rolled down on a slope. It went down like a cliff, straight down with very sharp rocks. That's what Gzeira means. chatucha, that it's sharp and it cuts up the avarim of the animal. Davacher, another pshat. Ein gzeira el davar amizgazer v'yoyred. Gzeira refers to the animal itself, to the goat, that it gets cut into pieces. Davaracher, third pshat. Gzeira, this whole mitzvah of Sar La'azazel is a decree from the Eibishter. Shema Taima, because you may say, Maisa Tayahu, this is a very strange thing, that you have to take a goat and push it off a cliff. What is this all about? It doesn't make any sense. Talmud Laima, therefore the pasuk says, Ani Hashem gizartiv, I the Hashem decreed to do this. Ve'ein lecha reshus laharer behen. You have no permission to think about why the Eibishter wanted this. This is a chayk, it's the gzeira of the Eibishter. That's why it says gzeira. Omar Rava, so Rava concludes regarding this machlekes, whether you're allowed to have a no from the limbs that are left there. Mistavre, it's logical, command the Oma mutarim, like the opinion that says that it's allowed. Because le'omra teire shlach l'takala. The Torah would not tell you to send it to the Azazel, and then the limbs are there, and then it could cause a stumbling block for someone. Someone's going to come and find these limbs, he's going to use it, and he's not going to know what it is. So therefore, Mistama, the Torah does not want people to stumble and be over and aveda. So therefore, probably after it's done, you could have a no from it. Tana Rabbanon, we learned in Abraisa Azazel. The mountain is called Azazel. What does Azazel mean? Sheyehei az v'kosha. It's hard, it's rough and a hard place. Yachal b'yishuv. I would think that you can find such a place even inside a settled, inside a city. If you find a cliff that is hard and tough. Talmud loymar b'midbar. Has to be out in the desert. Uminayin shebetzaik. How do we know that it's a cliff? Talmud loymar gzeira. As we said before, gzeira means that it doesn't come down like a slope, but it's like a cliff going straight down, basically. Tanya, in another brayso we learned, Azazel is kosher shebaharim, a roughest of mountains. The pasuk says, "Ves eilei ha'aretz lokach." So Azazel is az and el. So just like in this pasuk, eilei ha'aretz means the tough ones, the hard ones in the land. So to the word el in Azazel refers to the fact that it's a hard mountain. Tana de Rabbi Shmuel. Rabbi Shmuel has another pshat for Azazel. Azazel shemechaper al maise uza va'azal. That this is mechaper for even actions that are the averis of Uza and Azal. Who were they? So Rashi says those were malachim that came down into the world in the times before the Mabul, and it says over there Vayiru b'nei Elikim as b'nei Sa'adam. So they did averis, these malachim, and what averis? The averis of Gili Arayis. So basically, what it's saying is that this Maisa of pushing the sword off the Azazel is mechaper on all averis, including the averis of Gili Arayis, of immoral relationships. Ton Rabbanon and Abraisa we learned in connection to the Azazel, which we said is a gzeira, that it's a decree from the Eibishter. As mishpatai, the pasuk says, as mishpatai tasu, that you should fulfill my mishpatim. What are the mishpatim? Dvarim shel male nichtevu. Those that refers to mitzvahs that even if it wouldn't be written in the Torah, dinu sheyichtavu. It would be logical that it should be written. Ve'elohein, avedis kechavim, serving avedis zara, gili arayis, shvichis damim, gezel, birchas Hashem, which is the opposite of blessing Hashem's name. Those are things that a person on his own would understand that they're appropriate to be done. That's the mishpatim. Es chukaisai tishmeru, dvarim sha'asatan meishiv alei, and those are the things that the Satan argues with Yidden and says, why are you doing these things? Ve'elohein achilas chazer, not eating chazer and all kashrus. Levishas shatnez, not to wear shatnez. Chalitzas yevame, the halacha of chalitza of yevame. Taras mitzayra, all the halachas about a mitzayra, and this halach of the Soira Mishtaleach. It's interesting that it chooses dafka these. The Paradum is not mentioned here. This week's parsha, Paradum and Rashi also brings this. The Gemara says that the Satan is Mainin es Yisrael and so on. So this is also the chukim of here. So the Gemara concludes, V'shema toima ma'isa toyuhem. You might think that these are things that make no sense whatsoever, strange things that the Eibusha says to do. Talmud loima ani Hashem. Ani Hashem chakaktiv, I have made this the law. Ve'ein lecha reshus laharer behen. You have no permission to think about this. The Rebbe spoke about this lashon, ein lecha reshus laharer behen, many times. There was one place in the Siches in Chelik of Beis, Parshas B'chukaisa. The Rebbe there says an interesting pshat. To the Yukim, the Rebbe says. First of all, the Rebbe says, why does it say reshus? Ve'ein lecha reshus laharer behen. Why doesn't it say al taharer? Don't think about what the meaning is. Hashem wants it. Reshus means that be'emes, usually when a person is mekayim a mitzvah, you are supposed to think. Nasa and Nishma means first Nasa, but then Nishma. Nishma means you're supposed to be fedish, use your mind and understanding and the time of a mitzvah. So therefore here it's telling you, En l'chodesh shus, that b'derach klal you're supposed to be thinking, but over here the Eibusher says, specifically by these mitzvahs you shouldn't. Another dict of the Rebbe is it says laharer. There's a very big difference between laharer or a person that's trying to understand the reason of something. Because laharer means when you're questioning, when you're doubting. Should I do this? Should I not? Like when a person, like the Rebbe brings the lashon of the Gemara, maharer acharabai, when a person is skeptical about his teacher and it's a lack of trust. So the lack of trust, that's not allowed. But to think and to try to give time for the mitzvahs, the Rambam, even when you get to mitzvahs that are chukim, says that although we don't understand them fully, but nevertheless, there are reasons, there are pshatim for them. Even though we're going to get to this week's parsha by the Para Aduma, Rashi, after he finishes the pshat, brings a whole long thing from Rab Moshe Adash and explaining every single detail of the Para Aduma, what it means, what's the reason for it. Pile Plan, Para Aduma, which is the biggest chayk of all, Zayis Chokes HaTeirah, Rashi gives a reason for every single detail of the Para Aduma. So that means, Ein L'cha Reshus Laharer, to lack of trust, but to try to give reasons, that's mutter. The next thing it said in the Mishnah was, Ein Mesayim Etame Begodim, when does this person's garments become tummy, like the Pasuk says, the person that's taking it out. So Tanir Rabbanon, it says in the Braisa, Hameshaleyach metame begodim. The person that's sent to actually take it, the soil, his begodim become tummy. But ve'ein hasheleach es hameshaleyach metame begodim. People that are sending him off, or the people that are actually accompanying him, their garments do not become tummy. Yochel, I would think, the moment he leaves the walls of the Azara, his garments become tamei. Talmud Loima hameshaleach. Shaleach means when he's sent, when he's already further on his way. So the pasuk says Mishaleach, Yachal, I would think, Achi Yagia L'tzai, that his garments only become tummy once he actually arrives to the cliff. Talmud Loima vi HaMishaleach. The extra vav says, no, he becomes tummy even before, and when is that? Like it said in the Mishnah, HaKeitzad, Mishayatza Chutz L'chaimis Yerushalayim. When he leaves the walls of Yerushalayim, his garments become tummy. Divrei Rabbi Yehuda, that's the first opinion here. Rabbi Yaisi says, if you look in the pasuk where it talks about the fact that his clothing becomes tamei, so what does it say there? Azazel v'chibes. Taking it to the Azazel, then he should wash his garments, right? The lashon of the pasuk is, Shalechas asar la Azazel yechabes begodav. So because it says Azazel and yechabes together, that means ashegiyah l'tzai, that his garments only become tamei once he actually arrives to the Azazel, to the cliff. Third opinion, Rab Shimon Aimer, the pasuk says, "Va'meshaleach es asar la azazel yechabes begadov." What does this mean? Zorkei bevas roish. When you push it off the mountain and its head goes rolling down, umetame begadim. That's when your garments become tummy. So not even when you arrive, your garments are not tummy yet. Only after you actually pushed it off the mountain, that's when your garments become tummy.